Imagine a history class where you're not just reading about ancient Rome, you're actually walking its busy streets. Or a science class where you get to dissect a human heart without ever, picking up a scalpel. This isn't some far off sci fi dream. It's what's happening in classrooms right now, in 2026. Virtual reality is totally changing the game, and we're going to take a look at how it's reshaping education all over the world.
And listen, this isn't just a little trend for a few fancy schools. We are talking about a massive, massive economic shift. By 2030, VR training is expected to pump nearly $300 billion into the global economy. And that's not just a number on a page. That's the money that's putting headsets in classrooms and giving students these incredible, once-in-a-lifetime learning experiences.
So, what does this big revolution actually look like inside the classroom? Well, the whole idea is pretty simple, actually. It's a move from just passively watching to actively doing. Instead of just soaking up information from a book or a lecture, students are now getting their hands dirty, so to speak. And that's where VR is an absolute game changer. This really breaks it down perfectly. On one side, you've got the old way, right? Stacks of textbooks, trying to memorize abstract ideas. But on the other side, you see a student totally immersed, physically interacting with what they're learning. It's the huge difference between just reading about something and truly deeply understanding it because you've experienced it. Okay, so let's get specific. How does this whole learning by doing thing actually work in a real science or history class? Let's dive in. In science, oh man, the impact is just profound. We're talking about virtual labs where the impossible becomes possible. I mean, think about it. How many high schools can afford their own particle accelerator? Probably none, right? Well, with VR, any student can run experiments that would be way too dangerous, too expensive, or just plain impossible to do in a regular lab. And these aren't just hypotheticals. In Singapore, secondary school students are already doing virtual heart dissections. On platforms like Labster, they can mix explosive chemicals without any danger, or literally shrink down to explore the inside of a cell. They can run physics experiments that would be way, way too risky to ever attempt in a real classroom. And the data totally backs this up. This isn't just about fun and games, it's about results. Research shows a jaw-dropping 76% increase in how effective learning is with VR compared to the old ways. And why is that? Well, it's because VR uses so many of your senses at once: sight, sound, even your sense of being there. It just helps your brain lock in the information and truly understand it on a deeper level. All right, let's switch gears and talk about history. You know how sometimes history can feel like just a long list of dates and names? VR is completely flipping that script. It's making history a living, breathing experience. We're talking about the difference between reading about ancient Rome and actually feeling the cobblestones under your feet. Just picture it. You put on a headset, and boom, you're not in your classroom anymore. You're in a crowded market in ancient Rome. Or maybe you're taking a virtual field trip to the Great Wall of China. You can even take a quiet, incredibly powerful tour of the secret annex where Anne Frank wrote her diary. History stops being a story and becomes a place you can actually go. But VR's reach goes way beyond just the classic school subjects. It's also blazing new trails and helping students develop really important life skills, like becoming fluent in a new language or building social and emotional intelligence. For anyone trying to learn a new language, this is an absolute game changer. VR lets you practice having real conversations in a totally safe space. And that's so important because you know that fear of making a mistake? Studies show it's one of the biggest things that holds people back. In a virtual world, you can practice, mess up, and try again, all without feeling embarrassed. Now, this might be one of the most exciting developments of all. VR's incredible potential to make classrooms more inclusive, especially for neurodiverse learners and students who need extra support. Think about it. For a student on the autism spectrum, the real world can be really unpredictable and overwhelming. This quote from a recent study just nails it. A virtual world, though, it's controlled, it's repeatable, it's safe. It's a space where they can practice tricky social skills without all the stress and anxiety that comes with real-life interactions. So what does that actually look like? Well, first, a guide might explain a social idea, like how to say hello politely. Then, the student pops into a virtual scene, maybe a school hallway, where they have to make a choice. And then, and this is the most important part, they talk about it with a teacher afterward. It's this structured, guided practice that can really, truly make a difference. Okay, so this all sounds incredible, right? But we gotta be realistic. Getting VR into every school isn't a walk in the park. There are some serious hurdles to overcome, and it's important to take a clear-eyed look at the challenges schools are up against.
Here are the big ones. The high cost is obviously a huge barrier. Then there's making sure teachers are properly trained, and probably most importantly, making sure every student has access. But the good news is, schools are getting really smart about this. They're using things like grant money and rolling out the tech in phases to tackle these problems head on.
And this chart really shows you just how serious that equity challenge is. A 2024 UNESCO report found that only about 15 to 20% of schools in low-income areas can even use VR. This isn't just a tech gap, it's an opportunity gap. And if we're not careful, this amazing technology could actually make inequality in education even worse. But despite all those challenges, this is a truly global movement. From schools in Montgomery, Alabama, all the way to South Korea, educators are pioneering this stuff and seeing amazing results. And yeah, the problems with cost and training are real, but they're not impossible to solve. The progress so far is really a credit to just how dedicated and creative teachers are all over the world.
So the virtual classroom isn't a question of if anymore. It's a question of how. The tech is here. We know what it can do. The real work ahead for all of us is making sure that we build this new reality in a way that's fair, that's thoughtful, and that helps every single student succeed. The future of education is right here, and it's up to us to make sure it's a better one.